So today we're going to be taking a look at our first fabrication project, and before we get to the video I want to show you that our kits usually come in a package complete with all the components ready for you to assemble. They also come with a sheet of instructions. You're also going to need a stripping, crimping tool. These things are very expensive, so we loan them to you. Remember to put them back when you're done with them. Now all our projects come with a marking sheet, and it tells you what you get marks for and what the total is for the project. So this project is basically worth 10% of your grade. You can see on the first item here the sign-off sheet, of which this is the sign-off sheet. If you can keep it without getting any stains on it or bending it up, you'll get a mark for keeping your paperwork clean. We get 2 marks for stripping the cable, making sure it's trimmed correctly, neatly. Making sure that the boots are installed correctly, we can get 1 mark for that. Making sure the wires are connected to the proper pins, we can get 2 marks for that. So we're already up to 60% of your grade before we get to the last item here, and that is that the cable works correctly. You'll get a full 4 points for that. Now it should be noted that every time you need a replacement part, you're going to lose 2 marks. And if you do not get the required signatures, you're also going to lose 2 marks for that. So it's very easy to lose your entire 10 marks before you've even tested your cable out. I just want to bring to your attention here the note at the bottom of the page, and it says any project submitted for grading without the mandatory sign-off sheet will result in a grade of 0. Also note that sign-off sheets placed in your file folder will result in your project being graded, and it may be graded before you're ready to hand it in. So this sheet cannot be kept in your file folder. If it's a 2-week project, you have to take it home with you and keep it neat. The other side of the sheet is the mandatory sign-off sheet. So you must put your student name on here so that we know who it belongs to. Please note the warning: safety is always the primary concern. Observe safety rules for every lab. You'll notice on this sheet there's room for 3 sign-offs. The first sign-off is you're going to check your kit to make sure it's complete before starting the project. You, the student, must sign here before getting other sign-offs. The sign-offs are really inspections, right? So the first sign-off we have here is have connector assembly checked by instructor, technologist before crimping. Now it makes sense to get your project checked before you crimp it, because if you put it together wrong and crimp it and it doesn't work, then you're going to lose 2 marks because you have to cut the end off and put a new one on. Sign off number 3, have complete cable assembly checked by instructor or technology for cable test. We're going to use a go, no-go box, and the LED must blink green. So every one of our projects will have sign-offs that you need to get before you can move on to the next step. On here we also have space for any replacement parts that you require. So remember, every time you need a replacement part, you're going to lose marks. This also includes an area for us to write safety violations. So if you're not wearing your safety glasses in class, we're going to write you up as having a violation, and you're going to lose marks for that. Please note at the bottom of this page there is a warning. It says all projects must remain in your project box until graded. Violation of this policy will result in a grade of 0. We can't let you take your projects home and work on them because you might have an uncle who works in the industry, and it would be very unfair to have him finish the projects for you. So when you get your project, you can take the parts out of the bag. Make sure that you do have 2 connectors, 2 boots, and a fairly long piece of Cat 5 cable, along with a set of instructions. So once you've verified that you have all the correct parts in your kit, you can sign it off, you, the student, and then you can start assembling your kit. Remember to have it checked before you actually crimp it. All my kits come with detailed set of instructions where I go onto the internet and try and find the best graphics for you so that it can show you what we're trying to accomplish. So now I'm going to start the construction video. Good luck with your project. So I've given you a nice clear set of instructions here. We can see that we've got a certain order that we have to put these wires into the connector, and basically it's green stripe, green, orange stripe, blue, blue stripe, orange, brown stripe, brown, and I've given you a nice little picture up here so you can orient your RJ45 connector. So, instructions, 2 boots and 2 RJ45 connectors. Now I've gone and cut a length, I guess that's about 3 feet of Cat 5 cable. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a knot in one end, and what you want to do is you want to put these boots on. So the first boot goes wide end on first, right, because that's going to go to an RJ45 connector, and then you put the other boot on this way, right, and then your RJ45 is going to go on here, and the boot's going to cover the end of the connector. Okay, so I've got the boots on. It's important to get the boot on first because the boot will not fit over the RJ45 connector, and it can be a bit embarrassing, to say the least, when you've got to recut it. Okay, now on this tool you can see I've got a little bar here, so we feed the wire through until it hits that little bar at the back, and that'll strip it to the right size. Now the important thing here is to, right, we're just going to nick the wire, and it'll crush it, and we give it a little turn, and it should cut through the insulation. We're trying to be careful here not to cut through the wires underneath, so give it a little tug, and it should. There we go. Now you can see, hopefully, that we've managed to nick all these wires here, and that's not something you want to do. So we're going to start again. We're going to cut the end off. We can cut it off. See, we've got a blade on here and a flat portion, so we just cut that off, and now we're going to put it back in till it comes to the stopper, and we'll just make a little cut there and then take it out. Okay, so now you can see that there's a little indent in here. Alright, little indent. So then we can move down to this curved piece here, put it through to the indent, and then just curl it round like so, and that peels the insulation off, and then we're left with these twisted pairs inside. Now the Cat 5 cable has 8 wires in groups of 2. So the 2 green ones are twisted together, the 2 brown ones are twisted together, the 2 orange ones are twisted together, and the 2 blue ones. Blue and blue stripe, orange and orange stripe, green and green stripe, and brown and brown stripe. Inside here there's going to be, well, there's usually going to be some kind of some kind of string or something that they use to pull it through. So you're going to need to, right there's your little piece of string right there. What you're going to need to do is get some cutters and just snip that piece off. Alright, sorry that took so long. I'd lent somebody my side cutters and they'd walked off with them. After a while you learn not to loan out your tools. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is to get all these little wires here in the right order. So I gave you a set of instructions. So the first wire I've got to find is the green striped wire. Now this is going to take a while. Okay, so we've got to straighten it out. And remember, these are solid wires, so you don't want to be working them too much. Okay, so I've got my green stripe. So now I got to find my green wire. And I want to get the green wire right next to, right, and there's gonna be thumbs all over the place here. So there's my green wire right beside my green striped wire. Okay. Next thing I need is an orange stripe. So where's the darn orange stripe here? And yeah, it does take a while to hunt through these things and find them. So there we go. And you got to give a little bit of bending to them, right? And try and straighten them a little bit. And then the other one gets bent up, right? So takes a little practice. Okay, so I've got my green stripe, green, and my orange stripe, and now I'm looking for the solid blue. And right, I gotta try and line it up. Okay, so that's not too bad. Then comes my blue stripe, which is kind of handy right beside the blue. Okay. Okay, so there's the blue stripe. At least I think it's blue stripe. Next comes the solid orange one. And, right, sometimes you have to wiggle these around. There we go. Whoops, those two just flipped on me. And okay. So it doesn't hurt to wiggle them back and forth a little bit. Okay, so green stripe green, orange stripe blue, blue stripe orange. And that blue one just isn't quite straight enough for my liking. Okay, so that's the solid orange. So now I need to figure out which one is the brown stripe. And that's the brown stripe. So get it in there. And then the next one is the brown. Okay. So after you've fiddled around with that for about half hour, you can see that the length of these wires is all different. So bringing the tool back, you can see that we've got a cutter here. So we're going to put the wires in and just cut the ends of the wire off so that they're all straight. Okay. That brown one still looks a bit low, so we'll cut a bit more off. Okay, so now they look straight. Now, the next thing is to orient these connectors the right way around. And looking at my picture, the little bump there goes down. And these little connectors, yeah, there's the step piece at the back here. So that seems to be the way I want to orient it. And I want the green stripe to be at this end here, so they slide on this way. Now as you're sliding them on, you probably won't be able to see this very well, right? But they go in there, and sometimes they get in the wrong order, so you have to check these a few times to try and get them right. Now the hard part is, right, I can see that I've got a green stripe green, orange stripe blue, And this one here doesn't look too much like I got a blue stripe on it. So you might have to tip it over, look at the other side, and then on the other side you can say, oh yeah, that's blue. And then I got a solid orange, a brown stripe, and a brown. Now, what I'm not going to be able to pick up very good on the camera here, well, not too badly, I can see the wire goes to about here. So, I don't know if I can wiggle that around a bit more. The wire only goes to here. It has to get all the way down to the end. So you have to be able to push it in all the way. So, push, push, push. And from the top view here, I can see that the wires are just here. And I need to get them down to here. So, it won't go. I think if you take a look here, you can see that I've got some kind of cutout in the plastic inside, right? And it comes into a wedge right in here. Oh, my yellow, right? My yellow is kind of plugged up in there. So let's take it off and remeasure it. And I can see, right, yeah, there's too much. So I'm going to have to kind of clip on there again. And then I'm going to have to come back to here and twist it and take off some of that yellow insulation. Okay, so you can see that was a fair amount of insulation I took off of there. So now all my wires are in the wrong order again. So now I've got to set up my wires into the correct order. So green stripe, green, orange stripe, and yeah, you'll have to wiggle these around to make sure you got the right wire in there. So there's the orange stripe, followed by the blue. So you might need to move these wires around again, right? So there's the blue. Get these out of the way. Run the blue. Okay, next to that, I need to find the blue stripe. Followed by the solid orange. And after that, I need the brown stripe and the brown. Okay. And now after doing all that, you can see that they're not the right length again. So now I'm going to need to put them in here and trim them to the right length. Click. And then checking one more time, I've got the right colors here. Green stripe green, orange stripe blue, blue stripe orange, brown stripe brown. And so then I try and get them back in my connector. And push them in. There we go. Now, when you look at the end of the connector here, you should be able to push these until you see the copper ends, and they should kind of magnify the copper ends, so you like see little round plates in each window there. So you have to keep shoving them until they get in there correctly. Okay, so after struggling for about half hour, I've pretty much managed to get the wires right down to the very edge here. What's going to happen now is we're going to put this connector in the crimping tool, and these little pieces of metal here, right, these 8 pieces right across here, right, have to come down, and they go into these wires, and they have to go through the insulation and make contact with the wire. Because the only thing we strip back is the yellow, right? The yellow around the twisted pairs, right? So now we have to make the contact with the wires, and we're going to use the crimping tool to do that. So here's our crimping tool, and you can see right there, right the way across there, right, are all the little bars that are going to have to come down and crimp all these connectors here. So from this side we can see that it slides in like so, and you can see it on the other side, so it must go all the way in, so that these little bars come down and push all those little pins straight into the wire. Now it's extremely important that on this side right here, right, on this side, you push as hard as you can to get those wires in there to make contact at the end. And you see how at the end there they seem to be somewhat, except for the end there, right, except for the end, they look like they're almost amplified, almost a magnifying effect there. Right, so that tells you that you've got the wire right to the very end. Okay, and then you push down and you squeeze these things as hard as you can. And it helps to make a little noise sometimes. You go, ah! Okay, and you can let go, and you should be able to pull this guy out now. And what's happened is all these little metal pieces here, right, these pins, have been pushed down into the wires. Right, they've come down into the wires and they've made contact with all the individual wires. Also back here, a little bar, right, has been crushed into the connector to give it a little bit of strain relief. So when you tug on it, right, the end should not come off. Now remember those boots that we put on at the beginning? If you didn't put it on at the beginning, you've only done one so far, so it's not too bad. But when you do two, then you're going to have a problem. Right, this little piece here, right, has to go into that little bump right there. And there we are. There we have the boot on the end of the Cat 5 cable, and the RJ45 connector on the end. I happen to have a jack here from a project I was working on, and we can see that it slides in here like so, and usually goes click. Right, so there's that little plastic tab right there, and that holds it into your jack. So when you want to take these out, you have to push down on this little plastic clip here, and then it slides off. So more times than not, what happens is these little plastic pieces here break off, and you've got this cable slid all the way back into a bench somewhere, and it's far easier to actually put a new connector on than it is to rethreadle another one of these cables. Okay, so I'm going to slide the other end on, and we're going to test this to see if it works. Alright, I've finished my cable. I've got both ends on it, got the boots on there, so now I want to test my cable. What I've done is I've built a cable tester here, and you can see the cable goes in one hole and the other hole, and if you turn it on, we've got a red light there. Now every time you see it blink, it's going through a scan. It's actually checking all the wires in one, comparing it to the other. So all I'm going to do is plug one end in this side, and it doesn't matter which end, right? It's just a straight feed through cable, and then I'm going to plug the other one in this side, and green light means it's okay. Another project completed. Now a few people have asked me what's inside here, so I'm going to show you. I'll just take the screws out here, turn it off. It's just a small project I built quickly just so that we could test these cables out. There's not a lot to it. I used a PIC microcontroller, and all it does is right, all I've got is right? Your connector coming in, your PIC chip, 9-volt battery, a voltage regulator. I've got a dual color LED, flashes red and green. Now I do have a power light in here, so if I turn it on you can see that I have a power light and a check light. But really, right, all I've got is an LED, 330 ohm resistor, a PIC 16F88, which has the A to D converters built into it, and then on this end all I did was throw some stuff in there to kind of wedge it in, right? All it is right, if you take a look at those resistors there, right, they're all the same size, right? So all I've got is a basically a voltage divider, right? So that was a quick, simple little project. I thought you'd like to see the insides of it. I'll put the schematic and the right, this is actually a computer on this chip, right? So there's a program in there, so I'll put the program up on my website and you can check it out. And that completes this project.